Thanks, Jay. Our featured speaker, Ralph Gilles, was named Head of Global Design in April 2015 and is responsible for shaping and directing design across the entire FCA brand portfolio. He was also appointed to the Group Executive Council for Fiat Chrysler Automobiles during that same time period. Prior to these promotions, Gilles has held many senior management positions during his career prior to his current position as Head of Global Design. He is extremely active inside and outside the company, serving as a role model, sponsor, and a board member of numerous professional organizations. To say he is a busy guy is truly an understatement. An avid car enthusiast, Ralph enjoys spending time at the track, racing his toy cars, go-karting, and a fan of Formula One auto racing. In addition, he has frequently served as a judge at various Concours d'Elegance events across the country. Ralph has earned numerous academic and industry awards. He holds a Master of Business Administration from Michigan State University and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Industrial Design from the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. Ralph was born in New York City and raised in Montreal, Canada. He and his wife, Doris, and their 2 daughters live in Leonard, Michigan. Let me also add, like I mentioned before, that he is no stranger to the NCRO. I think this is the 3rd time he's been with us, and I think you're practicing to be one of us, really. So we're very fortunate. To have you as our featured speaker again. Thank you. Please welcome our guest speaker, Ralph Gilles.
You guys hear me? I'm afraid this one's having a little issue there. What the hell is this thing? Dale, you're going a little nuts with the tech. This looks like a lipstick. All right, so I'm going to try my best. So yeah, I've been here, I think, 3 times. I see a lot of familiar faces, even my original manager, Jim Hackstead. Hello. I miss you. He was kind of hard knocks back in the day, but no, I'm just kidding. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. I love coming to these events and speaking with the retirees. That's the plan. I mean, I plan to stay at Chrysler another 10 years, hopefully 5 to 10 years. But the bosses will have me on my 7th CEO. I've had 7 CEOs, and whew, they're all different. I'm telling you. This last one is absolutely. I've learned a lot from him. Amazing man, but really has brought the best out of us, however he can. I do have some sensitive stuff in my presentation, so I'd ask you to keep your cameras in your pockets, please. And I know there's a webcam. I didn't know that till today, so a couple times I'm going to ask them just to shut that off momentarily, only for a few things, and then we'll resume. I only have 2 videos. The last video I probably should have had at the beginning, but it's a recap that will be shown to analysts in a week. It's safe. It's going to be public, but again, I don't want it on the web, so it's really for your own way to understand what the company's up to. So I'm going to give you a quick overview, and really what you see is from my perspective. I am not really an FCA spokesman. I'm a designer at the end of the day. I understand business. I sit in all the committees. I'm on the executive board of the company, not the real board. There's a 12-person board that's the board. I'm on the, what Sergio calls the GEC, the Global Executive Committee. So all the decisions come to us, and I definitely sit at the table and I hear everything. And it's amazing. It's really hit me. I took over design for the whole group in 2015. Before that, since 08, I was just the North American guy. And being on the JEC at the same time since 2015, we really are a global company. That's one thing. We've always talked about global this, global that, but FCA is absolutely a global company. We're relevant in all continents. We're actually #1 in South America, back and forth here and there. And we're really making inroads in Asia and especially India. In India, actually, we're starting to pick up a lot of steam with the Jeep brand. So that really changes what I work on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So it's a challenge a little bit for me because, you know, yes, we have our awesome office, and some of you, I think we invited us, at least the designers, we had an open house. It was really cool. We brought a lot of retirees in to show them the new office. So the tech center is kicking butt, still at max capacity ever since the downturn. We're back up to max capacity. And it's kind of neat to see the new faces. So my job, still get to do this. There's still a classic part of what we do. That's a lot of fun. The staff is pretty stable. This is my team, a pretty diverse team. We're kind of, we're all getting at that age where we're wondering who the next guys are going to be. We're starting to think about that. You know, like, it's making me sad because I love what I do, but I realize I got to start grooming the next people. So, and I showed some of this presentation to some other people outside the company, and I like to refer to my office as the design office kitchen, because my boss treats design a little differently than before. In the old days, the product planning office would come with a LRP and it'd be all these things, and you knew what you were working on sometimes 8 years in advance. With Sergio, it's a little different. I'm a little more like a short order chef. you know? So he asked me to cook this up, cook that up, and I'm always cooking. And I've learned to cook quickly and try to make delicious beef. But he is really instinctual. He has an amazing instinct, and sometimes it's right when he says it's right. So it's been a lot of fun adapting to that. But what I love is, again, the young people. What we're finding, and I'm finding now more than ever, is people want to work at FCA. There was a time when it was kind of tough to get kids to come over, whether it was living in Detroit or whatever. But really, FCA was always seen as this risky thing, risky company to. And I'm sure some of you remember that in your careers. You were a little crazy to work for FCA, or Chrysler at the time. But I kind of love that. I love that. And I talk to the kids. I say, working here is going to be hell. It's going to be fun. It's a roller coaster ride, but enjoy it. Hey, Sam, see you over there. Agua, remember that? Same ages. Anyway, so some of the tools we're using now have changed. So we still have this amazing classic part of the art, and I still love that we do that. We're not giving up clay as long as I'm around. And we went through a phase where we tried to give it up, and the cars, if you remember the caliber, the cars looked a little cubic. So I brought the clay back. What we do now is we kind of meld the old processes and the new processes, and have come up with some cool stuff. So obviously the new stuff, we're early adopters. We're actually using some of the highest tech. In some ways, we're pushing our tech providers with some of the stuff that only NASA uses, and actually Airbus and also Hollywood. So we really have the latest and greatest tools at FCA. But like I was saying before about the global thing, these are the brands you think of when you think of Chrysler. And still to this day, because FCA sounds a bit more like a bank, right? It doesn't. Some people, like, when I meet friends, where do you work? FCA is. Oh, are you a financial guy? No, it's a car company. Damn it. So the other side of the brands, if you see there, so I spend about 3 days a month. I'm in Italy. I literally fly over there. Sometimes I hitch a ride with the boss. Sometimes I go on my own. But I keep one toe in that water, and it's a learning experience. Completely different markets, but they are trying to go global. So they sell Maserati and Alfa here. Actually, their biggest market is the U.S. So it's actually good to have my perspective on those products. And we're also trying to penetrate the Chinese market. They love the Maserati brand in China, and they love the Jeep brand. So the Italians are teaching us how to make small Jeeps that are relevant in Europe and stuff like that. And we're teaching them how to make big Maseratis that are relevant here. So the combination is working pretty cool. So now we're more like this. These are the brands, right? So you have Maserati, Alfa Romeo, Fiat. So when you have friends out there shopping cars, don't forget to remind them that we have these other brands, right? So there's a lot to offer. In fact, we probably have more brands in a company than anybody else. And that's one of the things that my designers, when I hire them, love about FCA is the fact that they can work on so many different brands. What I've been doing to keep them interested, I've been shipping them to Italy, and they've been spending 6 months at a time, and I've shipped Italians to the US, and they get design Ram trucks. You should see an Italian designing a Ram. It's like there's so much extra metal. What do I do with it? But so we have a lot of fun. But again, this idea of these opposing forces, I just love it. On one end, we're doing Chrysler minivans, and then we're doing sweet, delicious Alfa Romeos. So it's a really cool time to be in the office. But the one thing I would say that's driving me a little crazy is the modern car. I'm sure a lot of you change cars a couple of years, 3 years. If you notice the tech, every time you get a new car, there's new stuff in it, new technology, bigger screens, all this stuff. And in a way, the snowballs is, to me, feels like a snowball getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The modern car is becoming way more complicated. It's tougher for us to design. We're finding that we have to hire different kind of people. We have to look at new technologies. And I go back to what Steve Jobs said, hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. We don't hire them to tell them what to do. So that's really been the deal. So the group is getting more diverse. As we look at the minivan, for example, the current minivan is a spaceship compared to the one we did 8 years ago. And a totally different complexion of people had to work on that. So just a quick example. So in '08, if you look at some of the stuff, look at the top line, the virtual modeling. So virtual modeling is a computerized surfacing. We're actually, again, early adopters, a huge team. We thought it was a big team at 50, right? And in 2011, we upped it to about 70 people. And the clay modeling went from 105 to 90. And look at us today. So that virtual team is almost more than 2.5 times its size. So 120 virtual modelers. User experience, which is infotainment stuff, all the electronics in the car went for virtually nothing to a group of 35. And I'm still trying to hire more. And then the interiors, if you notice, our interiors are a lot nicer than they used to be. So we've put a lot more effort. I mean, we have tools that Jim only could have dreamed of back in the day. We have some great tools, and we're kind of trying to make the best of that. And then the clay modeling, I'm having an issue with retirement. A lot of these guys are retiring out of the trade, and you can't find skilled trades anymore. It's a real big problem. And we are begging some guys to come back per diem here and there. So don't be surprised if you get a note from me. But actually, it's a big problem. A lot of kids, first of all, they don't know about the job, and we just can't find them or get them. So we're actually taking fine artists and introducing them to clay modeling and training them. And we're finding that ceramic pottery people make great clay modelers. So we're trying to find people like that. So our headcount has grown, but in different ways. So we've added different aspects. And we're also controlling more. In the old days, we would literally give our headlamp design to supplier XYZ, and they would come back with a lamp. So today we actually design everything ourselves. We actually happen to own Magneti Marelli, which is automotive lighting, which is the biggest supplier of lighting to Porsche, Audi, and BMW. And one day I said to myself, why does Audi have such nice lights? I'm like, wait a minute, we make the lights for those Audis. You know those beautiful headlamps you see on Audis? We actually make them. The company makes them. So we said, we're going to redo that. So we now control our own destiny with our lighting. And lo and behold, our lighting has gotten awesome, right? And there again, the dedicated lighting designers. So I have designers that just do nothing but make headlamps and tail lamps, which didn't exist 5 years ago. So the idea of that is that headlamps can make the car much more interesting. You see a lot of vehicles changing personalities. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible. There's some technology out there that you won't even believe it's a headlamp, but it's a headlamp, you know? So we're having a lot of fun with that, trying to bring back that 1950s daringness to the cars, make them more exciting. And these are still lithography components that we make in-house. So we make these prototype headlamps and tail lamp stuff. So the other side I was telling you about interior design, I can't tell you how passionate these people are about interior design. So what I've done, instead of hiring car designers and trying to make them interior designers, I've hired product designers and graphic designers and textile designers. So they approach the interior totally differently. They love working on it. And they're enthused. This girl I hired from California, she moved from California here, and she couldn't be happier. She's been here almost 14 years, and she's designed some of the nicest interiors. And the amount of detail we're putting in now is because they care. They just look at it differently. We're also doing the same thing in Italy. We've created dedicated interior teams. They didn't have that. They just kind of went back and forth using exterior guys. So that has helped a lot. The textile thing, again, we used to go down to our suppliers like Milliken, and they would give us samples. Now we actually make the samples. We actually control the entire process of all the textiles and details. And the end result is a little more give a shitness. Excuse my French, but we hire former fashion designers. This guy's from Manhattan, and he loves living in Detroit. He never thought he'd be a Detroiter, and then finishes. Everywhere you look, we're trying to up our game in terms of detail. Especially the one thing that's happened with FCA product is we're able to command more pricing than ever. We are adding more feature, and we're not leaving the bottom end behind. We're still creating great value, but we're finding that our brands are able to command much more pricing, and a lot of that has to do with the interior. So this is Tim Kobe. I happened to meet him at a conference in Japan, and he talked about the inside of the Apple store. He's the guy that designed all the Apple stores, and you just want to spend time there. There's something about it that's inviting. And it kind of inspired me to say the next generation cars, as cars become autonomous. Now, don't be afraid. The autonomous thing is going to be largely city stuff in the beginning, mostly taxi replacement in places like Las Vegas and New York and those really busy cities. But it's something we're looking at is how will the modern car handle that? Once you don't have to drive anymore, what does the inside of the car look like? So yes, and I don't know if we're going to provide that to the public or maybe it's a commercial deal. So we're actually having these discussions with big companies right now. That's all I can say on that. But we did look at, you know, the hybrid electric car a long time ago, the fully electric car, and it's still to this day there are over 60 offerings of electric cars out there, nameplates, but it's only 3% of the market. The take rate has not moved, even though there's all these offerings. So we've been a little bit more patient on that front than other companies because it just isn't there yet. The technology is not quite affordable yet, and people aren't demanding it yet. So we have our eye on our finger on the pulse of that, but we're being very cautious with that. On the other hand, the tech tsunami is real. Whether it's me hiring tech people inside the company or tech companies wanting to get into the auto industry, one thing I've noticed is all my friends in Palo Alto, they're trying to make cars or they're trying to get their tech into our cars, right? So, and then California has been doing that for a long time, right? I grew up watching this guy. Remember him? A lot of the ladies here probably thought he was a good-looking dude. I could care less about David Hasselhoff. I was all in love with his car. You know? but the idea of the car becoming your friend. I've talked about this with students, and I think we're getting closer and closer to that, where one day, kind of like Alexa in your house and the Google Assistant, one day your car will talk to you like a friend, right? And so for some lonely people out there, it could be awesome, you know, like me, you know. When my wife kicks me out for the third time, I'll be like, anyway. And you see it in airplanes. I travel literally, like I said, a lot, and I'm starting to see it. When you get into an old airplane, it kind of sucks. You know, Delta has some crazy old airplanes. Every time I walk into a plane, I look at the build date, and when it's over 25 years, I'm like, ay, 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 ay. But once in a while, you see one that's a couple years old, and it looks like that, you know, and it's amazing. You can watch movies. So the world is getting used to this technology, and they're demanding it in the automobile. They really want to see that stuff in the automobile. Same thing with controls. Now, I liken the aircraft industry to the auto industry, right? Today it's the Wild West a little bit on all this autonomous stuff, but eventually it's going to be highly regulated, just like the aircraft industry. And if you look at the interior, that's actually a 747 that's still flying today. Some poor pilots have to fly that thing. And if you look at some of the newer planes from Boeing, are like a lot like those cars I showed you, right? So there's some interesting parallels there. And these things can pretty much fly themselves. Once they're off the ground, they don't do anything till they land, if anything at all. They almost land themselves. So one day cars will be like that, but there's still a pilot and there's still a tiny little joystick that controls the plane if they have to. And of course, the baby is being born. I'm sure a lot of you have grandkids or something, or even with the parents kind of throw an iPad in front of them, right? And that kid is not gonna he's gonna expect cars to be a lot different when they grow up, right? We're seeing that already. Tesla's leading the charge on that. Absolutely, we're starting to deal with that, but we have to be careful because I remind my designers that are 24 years old, you're not designing the car for yourself. You know, our customers are 16 to 86, right? So we have to be maybe 96. I should be respectful. Are there any centenarians in here? Anyone? No. Anyone over 90 in this room? Wow. God bless you. Mad respect for that. That's awesome. I want your tricks later. What secret sauce you're using? So it's something we've been looking at again is this infotainment, finding a way to bring the tech but not scare people, make it so intimidating that you're afraid to drive the car. So we're hiring again dedicated infotainment designer. Today our Uconnect system, thank you, is still a very respected system, and we're trying to very much protect that, but embrace all this technology. On the other hand, screen providers. There's a huge movement today in screens. Matter of fact, that's one of the biggest things going on is the world. If you ever have to invest in a company, invest in companies that are making digital screens right now, because that is blowing up. Everybody's going screen crazy with sizes, and this is what we call an OLED flexible screen, which is coming to the industry, which is going to give us freedom, you know, to make the interior a little more attractive. Because today they're pretty ugly. They're just kind of flat screens everywhere. I don't like it. I actually don't like the Tesla thing where the screen is super flat and huge, but I dream of this day. So just like headlamps gave us freedom on the outside of the car, the screens are getting there where we can cut the corners, we can make it rounded. So there's a lot of cool stuff. Unfortunately, the technology, the tech industry, when they look at the automotive specs they have to meet, they freak out. Like our stuff has to work at insane temperatures, and so that's still slowing us down a little bit, right? Because we have to make it more robust than they do. But on the other hand, I'm loving the challenge. You know, this is our team working on the portal concept. This is my design review sometimes. I'm not looking at a physical property anymore. I'm putting these 3D goggles on and enjoying it. And I'm actually having an argument about design. We look really funny when we do it, but it does work. And then the other aspect that I'm dealing with is connectivity, right? So I'm sure some of you are probably a little more connected than others, but it's coming our way. And it's getting easier, to be honest, to be connected. It's kind of flowing people's cars and phones, and there's probably a lot of marriages destroyed by these things sometimes, you know, when the text ends up in the wrong phone. I personally had a friend that happened to. His Apple Watch was upstairs, and an old girlfriend texted him, and it showed up on his phone and upstairs, and his wife's, oh my God. So we're gonna have to think about that as we go forward. But we're looking at how to integrate the tech. This happens to be a concept Fiat did a few years ago. But again, you know, how do we do it without intimidating people? And of course, the movie industry. You remember? I don't know if you remember this movie called Minority Report. Looking at all this technology being projected, it's really really cool. So this thing about the tech people coming into the industry and ourselves, you see every auto company is trying to sound more like a tech company sometimes than a car company. It's really, I think, creating a bit of a space race, right? This idea of the autonomous car, the level 3, level 2 you've heard about, is very intriguing. To me, it couldn't be more exciting. I don't fear it. I actually think it's exciting to see how we're going to make it all work. I personally think the pleasure automobile will always be around, just like people still race horses. They still have a lot of fun. It's just going to add more options to what you can find mobility in. So when I look at my competitors, I really, honestly, part of me doesn't just think about these teams. I think about the autonomous movement bringing in a whole suite of companies. The good news is everyone's on it. Everyone's looking at solutions. We don't want to become that. We want to be careful. This is from a movie, Wall-E, that one of my friends from CCS designed. That's a bit of a scary thing, right? To just let your whole life be. As a car enthusiast, to me, I'm like, oh, really? I don't want to be kind of shipped around everywhere. But when you look at the interest these companies have in our industry, they're kind of, you heard of the unfortunate things that have happened to Uber with autonomous crashes and stuff. They're all colliding in a way with what we've done a long time, right? The car is a difficult thing to make. It really is. It's a very tough thing to make. So they're starting to respect our craft a little more, and we've always respected their craft. But you're going to see a lot of co-melding of these things, where the tech companies and the auto companies are starting to really play ball together. And Google is a great example of that. No comment on its styling. Uh, but why would a big data company like Google care about the auto industry? So we wonder, right? Is Google in it so they can sell you more stuff or entertain you while you're being driven around? Or do they really want to provide mobility? So that's a bit of a big question. And we think it's a combination of both. You know, especially if you live in LA, Chicago, Toronto, you could spend 2 hours a day in your car on the way to work and another 2 hours on the way back home. So 4 hours a day, you're sitting there just trapped in your car. So it's a miserable experience. So a lot of people are wondering, how can we solve for that, right? How can we turn the car into a marketing space, but also a fun space? The AI thing is real. I'm a big sci-fi movie fan, and I tell you, things I saw in sci-fi movies 20, 30 years ago are actually happening. So they have an amazing way. And the reason that is because they interview scientists. All the movie makers interview scientists that are a bit ahead of the curve. And all that stuff is a great place to look for clues is to watch some sci-fi movies. So back to Google and us, right? And this idea of tech companies and auto companies. So that minivan that some of you are driving, by the way, if you like the Pacifica, who has a Pacifica here? Oh my God, that's awesome. Thank you. So it's we spent a lot of sweat equity on that vehicle, and it is chock full of sensors and cameras. I think it has 6 cameras on it, all kinds of stuff going on. It's actually as advanced as the Tesla S, in terms of the stuff we use, except we don't unleash it the same way they do, right? So we're really careful about that. But Google figured that out pretty quickly, that our van was an amazing platform because it has a fully electric steering rack. It's got the PHEV version, has a ton of voltage on it. So it's great to run all their sensors. So that relationship is really growing. We're actually selling them more and more minivans all the time, and they're actually made here right here up the street at Roush in Auburn Hills. And we build the van out of Windsor, not pretty much ready to go. We give them all the harnesses they need, so that's really working out to be a cool deal. And they're really taking their time. They've got more time, probably over 10 years of research and development versus their competitors at 2 to 3 years. So they're really ahead of the game, and we couldn't be happier than to be associated with them. In the meantime, we're also, again, remember that lighting company called Automotive Lighting? We've been working on taking all those sensors. I honestly, if I go back a slide, I'm not crazy about all those goiters on the car. That's the one thing, as a designer, it offends me, all those little sensors and everything. So we're really trying to find a way to integrate the sensors in the lighting as much as possible, other parts of the car. So the good news is, we design the cars of the future today. I kid you not, a few weeks ago, I had this very meeting with engineering, as we're trying to find a way to integrate all these sensors. I mean, it's like quadruple the amount of sensors you have today, but make it so you can't tell they're there. That's my goal. You'll never know they're there, right? So we're working on that. And the portal was exactly that idea. So if some of you remember the portal concept, if you haven't, look at it online. We built this car for CES about a little bit over a year ago. And it was actually built by millennials. The entire team were young millennials that we said, hey, build the car you'd want. As you enter family formation, you're about to have some kids, what would you drive? And we were surprised it looked a lot like a minivan. It was funkier than a minivan. It was a little more modern, but it had they're very practical, these kids. They really are not into showboating that much. It's more about function. And we were surprised. It's called a monospace vehicle. Why? Because it had the max amount of interior volume for the exterior footprint. So they really like that. The vehicle came out pretty awesome. It's a foot shorter than a Pacifica, but about the same size otherwise. So it's really a neat package. And more interior space in the Pacifica, very, very open inside. Open to the fact the doors it was named after its door system, the dual sliding doors. That's why they called it portals. It was like a portal to the interior of the vehicle. So a lot of interest on that. So stay tuned. We're still investigating that. The boss keeps talking about this vehicle, but I can't make any promises. But and this is not a picture of my mom, but my mom is one of those people that's a little afraid to drive at night, right? So one of my dreams is as we become all this stuff we're looking for towards autonomous cars, all those sensors I talked about, they're going to find their way into your car this year, next year, and the year after that. And what that's going to do is make your car, I'm not going to claim crash proof, but pretty close. Your car is going to become very intelligent. It's almost like an angel, a guardian angel looking over you as you're driving. So there's a way to extend people's mobility and extend the safety of a car. So it's virtually crash proof. The car knows exactly where it's at. It knows there's no road where you're about to go or whatever. So stay tuned. But that's really, to me, the main priority of all this stuff is first to make cars as safe as possible and as fearless to drive as possible. So in the meantime, real quick, going to go through the brands. Again, the minivan has been kicking butt out there. We're number one in the segment by far now, and it's getting amazing accolades. Even the hybrid is really picking up steam, as you can see there. And one thing we've been really investigating is why not try the S package. So this is an idea I had at my personal minivan. I took it, I blacked out all the chrome. I drove it around as my fast feedback car, and I was getting all these thumbs up from these younger people. Like, whoa, they seem to like the dechrome version. So we actually put it in production. It turns out it's now 30% of the sales. It's only been on sale for 3 months. It's already 30% of the sales. So and they're turning 3 times faster, at least in California and other markets. I don't know about you, Jerry, if you have any, but you're getting a little bit younger customer, right? And so leave it to the marketing guys. I'm going to show you how they think it should be marketed. So there's a commercial for you to enjoy. Sorry, the sound was, we didn't have time to rehearse. I apologize, Dale. We came in hot this morning, but you get the idea, right? They're really reaching out to a different customer, and it's working. Completely different animal. So this little baby from Maserati. So Maserati is also going through this electrified future. We've been publicly talking about an electric Maserati. Imagine that, right? So stay tuned on that. I can't talk too much about that. We're going to hear a lot about Maserati in the near future. Alfa Romeo, a brand I've loved since I was 6 years old in Montreal, very popular up in that part of the world. Very storied brand. Americans are still discovering it. It's a brand that's really been out of our minds for over 30 years, so it's making a comeback. No shortage of accolades from the media. They love the car. You could see kind of the nice words. Some of you may know that the Stylevo is available, by the way, in the program. So some of you may have one. Very cool car, very, very unique car. First SUV for Maserati ever. I mean, for Alfa Romeo. And I'm now working on the next gen of products. So we are cooking up. Why? Because that brand is one of those premium brands. And anymore, that's the only place to make money, really. It's very difficult with kind of mainstream brands to make some money. So we have these great brands in our portfolio. We're going to try to exploit them as much as possible. The Dodge is one of those brands that's been really amazing. It's really found its way to rejuvenate itself. It has an amazing audience. You never see things like this for Camrys and Hondas, you know. And this was taken a few years ago, and we do this every year. Last year, they had 1,600 owners at a rear drive LX event, basically for all the muscle cars. Still extremely popular. And I love this picture. I follow this group on Instagram. They put their cars together. They spent all day organizing. They do this all the time, actually. It's a club down in Atlanta, Georgia that does this. And other companies just dream about our colors that we have, you know, and we're crazy enough. Mopar's always been awesome with colors since the 60s. And we're trying to keep that going because people love it. And what I'm finding is millennials are buying these cars. It's not who you would think. Some of the scat packs that are purple are going to 30-year-olds. It's amazing. The median age of the Challenger is actually younger than all of our cars. It's kind of hard to believe, but there it is. And of course, this guy, the Demon. I just got my Demon, and I'm scared of it. I swear to God, I took it out for a spin, and I hit it, and I said, oh, I've never been scared of a car. Nothing scares me. I've driven everything. That car, I shat myself. I literally... So I put it back in the pole barn. I'm just going to let it... They call it Demon for a reason. I'm just going to bring a priest and see what he can do. But enough of that. And the Charger, again, we keep exploring the car. We're actually working on the next gen. I can't show you too much about that, but it's an amazing vehicle. Number one in the segment. It's a best-selling E-segment car, not including the police program, which is on top of that. And it's the only car, it's a four-door muscle car that is cross-shopped with Mustangs and Camaros. Think about that. People are buying a four-door car or a Mustang. So we're actually winning that one because, again, those millennials are very functional and practical people. Here's a few sketches you never saw. Da, da, da. Ta. Woo. Sorry, it's okay. If the dealer guy wasn't here, Jerry, if you weren't here, I could have showed him stuff. But you know Lincoln, and you talk. So, all right. And the one thing I got to show you guys, you hear a lot about this, and I still get questions about why is it 200 and all that stuff. The truck thing is here to stay. We have seen this trend. We called it actually about 3-4 years ahead of everyone else, but we saw the UV thing thanks to our Jeep brand. It's going like crazy, and the cars keep going down. Why? Because they're just more functional, and they're no longer the penalty they used to be, right? And it's not just in the US, it's happening all over the world. A little slower, but it's happening in Europe, it's happening, South America. In China, it's overnight. They're ditching cars and going to crossovers. So that's why the Ram truck brand, for example, is kicking butt. People like the pickup trucks as well are doing well. So we've been only held back by capacity. If we could make more out of Warren, we would sell more. Right now, we're pegging the meter, and the new Ram is off to the races. They're turning really well, especially the limiteds, the high ends are doing very well. So we're really excited about that. And the Ram brand is growing, whether it's the commercial side, all of that adds up to create a true brand that's really trying to kick butt. So I want to quickly dive into the new trucks. Have you seen it? Have you saw it in Detroit? We're having a little problem with it coming out of Shap, but it's getting there. So the idea was to kind of gentrify the truck, really. The market has moved on. It's not just a pickup anymore. People are buying these as an alternative to their luxury cars. You know, we're finding the top end of the truck segment, it keeps growing. We're still making the workman truck and the everyday truck, but we're adding more and more optionality to get more margin, and it's working. So this happens to be the limited dressed up in the monotone scheme. We designed the truck to really have multiple personalities right out of the gate. What happened a couple of years, 10 years ago, we launched the Ram. We basically had 3 versions. That was it. And we crossed our fingers. But lessons learned from Ford. Ford does an amazing job with the F-150 creating multiple personalities. So we've learned to take those personalities and exploit them. So we create the truck to be dressable in many, many different ways, whether it's the Rebel, the Limited, the Sport. The other thing we did is we looked at fit and finish. I didn't look at my competitors. I didn't look at Ford or GM. I looked at Mercedes, Audi, and those kind of brands, and Jaguar to look at fit and finish. And that's when you look at the interior of the Ram, you'll see gaps that you would see on the best European cars. So the end effect is something that's well crafted and feels way more premium than it even is. And the other thing we have is the biggest cab in the industry. We added 4 inches of legroom and the only reclining rear seat available. So that's another cool thing that the Ram has that nobody else has. And of course, that interior, that 12-inch screen kind of stole the show. Go back, sorry. Kind of stole the show at Detroit. It's pretty damn cool. It makes quite an impression. People, I think, Jerry, they're asking for it, right? They want and we can't make them fast enough because we didn't expect it to be that successful. And of course, storage, we're leaders there. There it is, the big screen. And again, this idea of personalized. We're watching this very closely. We're not done. We're gonna keep exploiting the Ram brand and what it can be, but so far, so well. It's working really well. This truck is off to the races. It's an amazing truck. It rides like a Bentley. That's what I try to tell my friends. And you never saw that. That was the next one I'm working on. The Jeep brand is another story. Again, look in 09. We barely could sell over 300,000 units in 09. And today, we're closing in on 1.4 million. We actually did 1.4 million last year. We had a little launch issue. But we're up to the races now. All the plants are running at full song. So we hope by the end of this year, we'll hit 2 million units. So think about that. That's 8 times the volume we did only 10 years ago. So and it's all over the world. We have 4 plants that make Jeeps throughout the world. 4 countries, sorry, where we make Jeeps. So that's what the lineup will look like someday. Most of that is fleshed out. It started with, honestly, the small cars. Like I remember I talked to you about the Italians helping us. So this was a Renegade that we did using their engineering, but our design. And it's kicking butt. It's #1 in Brazil. It's doing really well down there. It's doing decent here, actually better than we expected. Very well in Europe. And then the Compass, we were talking about at this table, is kicking ass everywhere. It will be the best-selling Jeep. Actually, it already is the best-selling Jeep in the world, period. And it was the toughest assignment for me because I had to design a Jeep that would work everywhere in the world, right? That's very hard to make a car that's relevant to every continent. But so far, so good. And it ain't stopping there. We have a lot of plans for that vehicle. And of course, this launched in China 2 weeks ago. So it was the first dedicated vehicle we've ever made for that market. So they wanted a specific size. It's not as big as it looks. It's actually the size of a Journey. It would be too small for this market, but it's perfect for the Chinese market. Really neat vehicle. It's called the Commander there. It's based on the Cherokee platform, and it just started building. And the other one, I got a little shit for this one. Sorry for my English. But the KL was a daring design. It's done well. It actually was designed to conquest Japanese intenders. But this year we've tried to fix it up. You know, we put a new front end on it. It's a little smarter looking, a little easier on the eyes, but still forward looking. The other thing we did is we gave it a Brazilian butt lift. We kind of cleaned up the back end. We put the plate pocket up top, but we did it for a reason. We actually were able to move the latch rearward and down, so to increase the storage space in the back. The other little known fact about this vehicle, it finally gets our world turbo 4 engine. Now, a lot of people think when they go to a 4-cylinder, it's a downgrade from a V6, but this baby rocks and rolls. On the left is a torque number of the V6. On the right is a torque number of the 4. When you hit this thing, it feels like an SRT. It lays rubber down. It's amazing. And it gets better fuel economy than the 2.4 liter. So if you're looking for a compact crossover, this might be the ticket now. It's finally competitive. And again, we increased the storage by over 3.5 cubic feet. So you can finally fit golf clubs in the back of the Cherokee. And then Wrangler, of course, you saw the one outside. Again, another formula thing we've learned over the years is making the most of what you got. That's one thing the boss said. When you're cooking, Ralph, I want all the different sandwiches, right? So we've taken the Wrangler and we keep making buzz models to the point where the dealers probably can barely keep up with us. And some of these buzz models stick around forever. The Rubicon a long time ago was a buzz model. It's now a permanent model. But we keep changing up. So every 3 to 6 months, we come up with something, and it's worked. We've had 0 decay on the Wrangler for 10 years. 0. If anything, yes, it's amazing. And the new one is launching. The old one was still selling well, and the new one's launching even better. So we had a month, I think 2 months ago, we sold 30,000 Wranglers in 1 month. Best-selling nameplate, period. I'm like, holy crap, you know, who's buying these things? So the new one was a bit tough. I mean, I was literally shaking in my boots, Mark Allen and myself on the team, and the boss literally looked me in the eye and goes, don't fuck it up, Ralph. You know, because you have a vehicle that ain't broken, you know. I'm sorry, I curse a little bit, so I apologize. So we looked at our past a little bit, and there's some things we did well, and some things, you know, I think the YJ was a bit of a mistake with the square headlamps, but we looked at the past, and if you look how small the original is, isn't that crazy? The original Willys was designed to fit in a crate. You know, you could fold the windshield down, literally fit in the crate. So we tried to capture that innocence, that kind of playfulness that the original had, but yet at the same time make it more serious, right? It was an interesting challenge. We also lessons learned from our Moab program. So every year for the last 12 years, we've been building custom Jeeps for this Easter Jeep Safari in Utah. And a lot of great ideas have come from that. So imagine that 6 or 7 times about 12. What is that? That's quite a bit, right? So a lot of years of ideas, and we put all of those ideas into the new one. So we also observe the community out there. There's people doing this every weekend all over the U.S. Also in China, by the way, there's off-road groups starting to be made. People are importing the vehicles just so they can go have fun with them. So when we launched a new Wrangler, it launched right away out of the box with the Rubicon version. We're going to bring in some half doors right away, 3 different tops. I mean, we really made the vehicle to be as configurable as possible. So we went to design it. We knew from the get-go that this thing was going to be ultra flexible. So it comes for the first time with multiple flares. Never had that before. Right from the factory, you can have high and low flares for the Rubicon, and those parts can fit. If someone wants to buy the Rubicon flares and put them on the base car, they can. And make it so that all of them look great. So here's today's, don't blink. I'm gonna show you a few things we did to the new one. So this is the old windows. They was very flat body side. So we added the ridge line through there and we lowered the DLO. And that ridge line is actually because the doors are now made out of aluminum. And if we had them as flat as before, they would oil can, they would be too soft. So we added some rigidity to them. The vehicle is roughly 200 pounds lighter than it used to be and quite a bit more aerodynamic actually, over 10% more. Also kind of gave it a more substantial face. When you see the new one next to the old one, you realize the old one kind of looked a bit sad. You know, those orange turn signal lights look like tears coming out of the eyes. You see that? Do you see that? Maybe only a designer sees it, but I look at every car like a face, you know, and it looks like a sad puppy, you know. So we tried to make the new one a little prouder. We put the DRLs nice and high. Yes, we made it wider, well, a little bit wider track, but it's actually not much bigger. It's only half an inch wider than the original and the same height. And the back end, same thing. We did some things. We added DRLs, of course. You got to have those. So it has a very cool nighttime personality now. And on the back, we actually lowered the tire. We lowered the spare tire and made the window much wider. So one of my designers had the best analogy. He says, when you drive it now, because he had one before, he had the old one, he had the new one. When you look behind me, I feel like I'm looking at HD television now. Because you couldn't see out the back of the old one at all. So the new one is way, way better for visibility. We also moved the wiper. If you notice, the wiper was up top. It had a great big black blind spot. Now that's moved behind the tire, so you can't see the wiper anymore. And we also designed it to look good with the doors off. So the windshield before used to take literally 45 minutes to an hour to take it apart, because you take it all the bolts apart. Right now it takes about 6 to 7 minutes if you have the right spanner, right? And it doesn't break the paint. So we've designed the roll cage to stay behind and the windshield to fall forward, just like an old sunroof would. So much cooler. We think a lot of people are going to have a lot more fun, you know, with the parades and all that stuff. And I also asked my guys to be inspired by Harley Davidson. You know why? Because I was tired of all that Velcro wrapping on all the railings around the car. So we designed that, and the sheet metal guys hated me because normally that they don't care. They just slap the roof cage together, they cover it in plastic. But we actually designed it to look good when the roof is off. So it looks more like a high-end motorcycle than it does the old Wrangler. So lots of details like that. The interior is awesome. I'm really proud of it. For the first time, it'll have leather wrapping, which it never had before. It has the big screens in there. It actually has storage. You can fit iPads and all kinds of stuff in there. Again, the door pull was designed to be also a door handle. When you take the doors off, it's easier to carry. So a lot of thoughtfulness from, again, years of doing this thing. And then it also looks good in a luxury way. So we're gonna have some fun taking this up market and down market as well. And then Mopar right out of the gate has a catalog of parts. So we actually designed them ourselves. We hired a team specifically to design the Mopar pieces instead of buying them from the outside. And then you never saw that. And this is a vehicle called the Yuntu. It was shown in China. It's actually a concept car that predated the K8, but it kind of talks a bit about the future of where Jeep is going. So we think we haven't really exploited all there is to exploit with Jeep yet. So stay tuned. You're going to see a lot more cool stuff. And why can't Jeeps be luxury items as well? So this happens to be the interior of the Yuntu concept we showed for the Chinese market, but it could also be for the US market. And a Grand Cherokee, this is where I got to ask you to shut off the web thingy. No cell phones around. Turning off that camera. Yes.
You received a lot of publicity with your Jeep in the newspapers. Would you tell us why you were called a hero?
Oh, geez. Okay, I'll talk about that. She's talking about the newspaper article about my Wrangler. So it was an evening leaving a party in Detroit. My wife and I stumbled upon a terrible accident on Lakeville Road where we live. It's an unlit 2-lane road. And a poor couple were trapped in their car, basically. I could only hear them. I couldn't see them. I could hear one of them. And what happened is the 2 cars were sitting there on the side of the road, immobile. And we were dealing with the situation, calling 911. And as we were waiting for them to arrive, a 3rd car came out of nowhere, didn't see the 2 cars and hit them. And then all 3 of the cars were smushed together, and then one of them caught fire. I'm talking 50-foot flames in the air with the people trapped in between. So we were worried, and there was gas leaking out of the front of the Ford Focus. And we thought for sure that thing was going to go up like a Roman candle. So I don't know where it came from. I have no idea, but I just thought to myself, hey, I'm going to turn around. And I literally pushed the Ford Edge that was kind of stuck, that caught fire. And I pushed it to the other side of the road in my Jeep. That's all. I don't know where it came from. My wife was screaming. She was on the phone 911 saying, my husband is pushing a burning car with his Wrangler. And the 911 lady is like, tell him to stop. And I don't listen to her. But it's a really sad story. The gentleman did survive. Unfortunately, his wife passed away. But hey, I think anyone in that situation who understands cars would have tried to do something. But it was a very crazy night. I hate to be called a hero. I don't think I'm a hero at all. I just happen to be at the right place at the right time. But thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Every time I think about that, I pass that road every time, and I literally cry every time because I think of anyway. Turns out the guy was a drunk driver that caused the issue. So you can't say enough about drunk driving. So that thing is off? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna, oops, it's not advancing. I think you turned me off too. So okay, we'll turn it back on. Okay, go ahead. So the Grand Cherokee's been the gift that keeps on giving. Very successful. Again, we've been pushing the personality of this vehicle. By the way, this is only 4 out of 11 personalities that it comes in. So something, again, when I worked on the Grand Cherokee way back when, we launched it with 3 personalities. Today, all these buzz models, especially the high altitude on the right, selling like crazy. People love that all blacked out look, and the Summit, SRTs, and now the Trailhawk. And of course, the crazy Hellcat version called the Trackhawk. That thing also would scare me. You know, it's a little more manageable than the Demon. And the new Grand Cherokee we're working on right now is cool. It's very, very cool. I think it's going to make people like Range Rover very, very nervous. So that's all I can say about that. We are burning the midnight oil as we speak. It's approved. It's funded. It's going forward. It's also going to have some awesome features that you never saw. And its cousin, you've heard of this guy a lot. So we are also working on that baby. Really can't show you too much more. But I'll show you this one. And I would say psychologically, ever since we started this program, and I've worked on 5 different versions of this car over my career, 25-year career at Chrysler. And this is it. This one's the real one. It's funny. Ever since we approved the program, I've been haunted by the old one. Like this is me on vacation seeing my mother-in-law in Oregon, and there it is. Everywhere I turn, there's a Wagoneer. They're popular. What's really happening is there's people restoring them, and sadly they're putting LS engines in them. But there's a huge love affair with this vehicle. It was stopped building in 1990, I think, 89, and it's still people still, and they're durable. Hell, you see them and they look like they're brand new. So we want to bring some of that magic back. We started the SUV thing. You know, Chrysler really was the first one to do the real full-size SUV. We're going to come back with, when you come to a party late, you bring a really good bottle of wine. So that's the idea. You never saw that. It's going to have some awesome features. There you go. Whew. Okay, you can turn it back on now. So the idea there is to stay nimble. So the last couple of slides here. So a lot of discussion about these 2 cars going away, and it was a tough decision. It really was. But that plant where we used to make the 200 is where we now make the Ram. So it alleviated the Ram. And if you can imagine, you have to sell, I hate to say it, but roughly 15 200s to make the profit of a typical Ram, right? And the Dart, unfortunately, was also built at Belvedere, where we now build the Cherokee, the refreshed Cherokee, which opened up capacity so we could build more Wranglers at Toledo. So it was this big round robin, but it made a lot of sense. But if you think about it, a lot of people say, yeah, FCA is killing cars, but yes, we might have deleted 2 unprofitable cars, as nice as they were. But on the other hand, we've added, oh, you got to turn me back on? That's okay. The Dale, poor guy. There, and we've added all these nameplates. So these cars did not exist 5 years ago. They're all new since FCA has been a company. And some of them wouldn't have been possible without FCA and Chrysler joining together. So when I look at that, as a long timer at Chrysler, I am very proud of what FCA is up to and what they're doing. They're really responding to an evolving market. We're trying our best to manage our brand so they're relevant. So each brand has its own personality, its own marketing scheme, and its own relevance. And so far, I would say that it's really starting to work. So last but not least, some of the things I'm dealing with in my world is this. One of the biggest thing is talent shortage. Actually, there's so much talent shortage right now. It's kids don't want to work in this industry because they think it's an oily, greasy thing. So trying to educate them, trying to find, going right to schools. I'm actually going. I'm playing dirty now. I'm going right to elementary schools and I'm literally forcing my designers to go visit elementary schools. I used to just do it in Detroit. Now I'm expanding it outside of this, down to Florida. We've been in California. I ask all my designers, where'd you grow up? You grew up somewhere, right? Somewhere. If it was in Kansas, go to Kansas, go to your old high school and tell them about car design. And it's amazing. Counselors have no clue. So a few years ago, we invited 56 counselors from all over Southeast Michigan into our office and spent the day with them, showing them design. And their minds were blown. They go, we had no idea this was a career. So that's what we're trying to do to find the talent, and it's starting to work. So last but not least, I want to show you a really cool video. Again, this can't go online. This is only for this group here. Cool. I hope you saw what I saw, and it's a company. Thank you. You can turn it back on now. So that's really the end of my presentation, but I wanted to say I hope you saw in the video a company that has depth, that's global, and a lot of technology. And one thing I would say is we're not letting up. You're going to see something that happened in the last few months, and I think continue to see is all of our regions were in the black. That has not happened in, I think, in 10, 15 years. As long as I could remember, every of our business areas around the world were all doing well. So that bodes well for the future. So I would say, all the challenges that face us, whether it's talent, whether it's competing with our competitors, we are nimble. I mean, it's the one thing about FCA that remains true, and it's one of the things I fell in love with the company about is its ability to adapt very quickly. We're still the smallest in some ways, but we're I think, outpunching our weight, so to speak, you know, and we're not going to forget that. We're never going to forget the humility of failure, but also the, I would say, the fact that we can take on anything. So kind of the theme I have in my head when I get up every day and go to work and I try to instill in my staff is bring it on. Bring on the future. We're not scared. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
I have a few minutes, 10 minutes for Q&A.
I just picked up a Jeep Compass.
Yeah.
Love it.
You love it? Good. You and 380,000 people throughout the world feel the same way. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there any forward planning in using the architecture of the Ferrari?
So there was an interesting question that's actually been talked about a lot in the media about
Using potentially a Viper platform to bring back the Ferrari. I can't talk about that, unfortunately. I would say never, but I can't talk about that exactly. So sorry.
When is the launch of the Wrangler truck?
I can't also talk about that. But it will hopefully be within the next 5 quarters or so. But definitely coming. It's absolutely been approved and talked about. So
Ralph, back here over to the right.
Great job on the presentation. Didn't see much on the 300. What's the future of that, especially within light of the Ford decision to abandon the passenger cars?
that's a sticky one because I love the 300. I'm personally attached to that vehicle. We're going to build it till the tools break. There's nothing that says it'll be shut off. We're investing in it in terms of emissions and keeping it up to date with technology. It is doing actually very well for what it is. As much as we haven't invested too much because that segment is virtually dead. The large car segment is really fading, unfortunately, as we're finding it firsthand. People are literally buying Grand Cherokees. They go in, they turn in a 300, and they leave with a Grand Cherokee. They find it's more comfortable. The fuel economy has closed the gap. The V6 Grand Cherokee is almost the same. So it's really tough. It's a tough sell, especially, no offense, but as people get older, they don't want to drop into a car anymore. Once they discover sliding into an SUV, they love it. You know? So we're watching that carefully. And by the way, a lot of people have invested in those things like Kia in luxury sedans, and they've all failed. No one is doing well in that segment, no matter how pretty the car is. So it's a tough one. So I've designed the next gen, but it's kind of sitting right now in the freezer.
Company car is pushing to Stylevo for us to lease it. And if you're like down in Florida, you've got a 4-hour drive to your dealership. Yeah. Why don't we stop this dual dealerships and allow you to lease the service and pricing?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about is absolutely true. He said they're pushing the Stylevo, but there's limited. I think there's only about 160 active stores. We're trying to get to 240. So they are sparse. And right now that's something they're working on. It's trying to expand the network. And the service part is difficult because there's a lot of unique tools that are related to the Alfa Romeo product. So it's not as easy as it may sound. But you're not the only one to say that. So we're aware of that.
Okay, Ralph.
Who are we?
Hello, I just want to make a statement, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but would you take that last video to the Consumer Reports cronies and show it to them, please?
You know what? I've learned a long time ago to ignore the haters. They have counted, if you think about FCA, Chrysler back in the day, they counted us out how many times? We'd never make it, they're going out of business, and all the analysts, and I was on a call about a month ago, and it never happened. I forget the name. I wish Warden something. I forget the name of the analyst. But Sergio was doing his analyst call, and we listened in, and all the board members listened in. And one of the analysts said, Sergio, I have to apologize. And literally, this guy has written nothing but crap articles about us for 10 years. And he literally apologized. Sergio says, you have delivered on everything you ever said you were going to do. I formally want to apologize in front of all the other analysts on the call. I'm talking a couple of hundred analysts on the call. He apologized, Sergio, and said, we are blown away by what you've accomplished. So I think we're going to get our due. Proof's in the pudding. No matter what people say, I ignore them. Look at our sales. Our quality numbers are getting right there. Some of our cars are better than Toyota today. We're doing that. Compass is one of them. Quality is really, really good on that car. So we're getting there. I just ignore it and move on.
Ralph, can you touch on when the new Grand Cherokee might come out and is Wagoneer approved?
I said the Wagoneer's approved. Can't talk about too much detail. I can't talk about when they're coming out, but they're going to be soon. The good news, the current Grand Cherokee is still kicking butt. you know, for what it is. And the other thing Sergio has taught us is cool your jets, right? We used to replace cars even before they were, you know, we wanted to replace a Wrangler 3 years ago. The current one's selling and making money. The tools are paid off. Let's bank it for a while. Same with the Grand Cherokee. It ain't broke. We've actually worked on the quality. We keep adding as much content, the leather packages, all that stuff, and it's working. So before we go replace products just because our egos tell us we have to, we want to make as much money as we can out of those tools because this industry is too expensive now to just replace them unneedlessly. So we're working on the new one. It's going to come. Don't worry.
Yes, sir. Is there any more merger talks?
Oh my God, we have a webcam and you want me to talk about merger talks? I can't talk about that. If you can, tell you what, if you can get Sergio to come to this, then you can ask him that question. So I'm just a designer, you know, I just.
Couple of design questions.
Thank you. Thank you. A design question.
I like a highly equipped vehicle,
Yeah.
but hate leather interior. When are we going to offer a premium fabric interior?
Ooh. All my years, I've never had that question.
If you live in a southern clime,
no,
like
you're
Texas,
right. You don't want to
that
stick to
leather
the seat.
it's the ventilated seats are a big improvement.
Okay.
But a really nice
Wow.
fabric of some sort would be great.
That's a unique. You live in Florida or Smile State?
Texas.
Texas. Whoa, shit, yeah, it gets really hot there.
I told you drew a crowd.
Okay, that one, I have to go back and think about that one. Honestly, I've never come across that question before.
One other thing, for the 18 Durango and Cherokee, they've made it where it's really hard to get the 8.4 screen. They've gone to the 7-inch screen.
Really?
And you have to get like a limited or a RT or something before you can get the 8.4 screen. We have a 14 Durango with the
bigger screen.
And
I'll have to ask
we're
the
not
guys.
getting
I
a
don't
new one
control that.
because of that.
I'll talk to the Dodge brand guys about that. I'm not sure. Sometimes what's happening is 8.4 is so darn popular, we're running out of supply a little bit, so they're trying to jockey. That's one of the reasons I've heard. So, anybody else? Got more questions over here? I think.
I wonder if you have any insights as to why some of the foreign manufacturers, I think recently Audi decided not to come to the Detroit Auto Show. Any idea?
So a very good question about why the foreign automakers, I think Porsche, Audi, and others have decided to skip out on the Detroit Auto Show. Number one is there's other ones that have grown in prevalence. The LA Auto Show is huge now. And what they're finding is that they can launch a product on the internet in a way, right? So they reach more people. So they'll do private events now and skip all auto shows altogether and do dedicated events. And that way they're not competing with media that are going to one show to the or one media reveal to the next. So that's a bit unfortunate because the Detroit Auto Show is kind of missing a little bit of the magic it used to have. But one thing they're talking about is moving the show from winter to the spring, which thank you, Jesus, that would make me very happy. I hate going down there right after New Year's, and I mean, it's that Detroit at its worst, really. So that might help. But a lot of it's competing with other shows and just the way they're launching it. And the other thing we're doing too, we're not launching in normal time anymore. We're launching products when they're ready. We used to launch them, they'd come out in June, and the show made a lot of sense. But now launches are all over the place. So I'm sorry, but I feel your pain. I hate that I don't see those guys at the show anymore.
Ralph, to your right.
Yeah.
Ralph, could you talk a little bit about what's going on in Washington, D.C. with the cafe and car versus the regular
I am so removed from that world. The only thing I do know is Sergio, and everybody knows this, was there Friday. So we had a closed-door meeting. All the heads of auto companies from all over the world were there, and they had a 1-hour closed-door meeting. I actually asked, I saw him yesterday. I had a meeting with the boss yesterday. I asked him, so what'd you say? And he looked at me like, I can't tell you. You know? But you saw there was a public statement revealed. I think they're going to come to something that makes a little more sense. He talked about data-driven results, and I agree with that 100%. You got to look at the data. You can't force cars into what people don't want. I think we're going to get where they need to go, but it's going to be more gradual, which is all we're saying. We're not saying we're fighting the rules. Let's just do it on a pace that makes sense for everybody financially.
I got a question and a request combined. Is there, in the future product, a better way of integrating something? My phone has this wonderful Google Maps function that just works seamlessly, but I can't see it when I'm driving. And all of us in here with the spectacles are struggling with the same thing. But the nav is in the car is awful comparatively, but I can't use the phone without running into something.
Okay.
You know?
And does your car have CarPlay?
That took over the phone and made it go berserk.
Okay. Because I personally I love the CarPlay. It works pretty well for that. That's a very common question of us. We're trying to find a way to make it. I love the way the phone works. I wish exactly what you're saying. CarPlay was a huge step in that way to get CarPlay and Android Auto, which we were actually first pretty fast at having that. But what you're talking about is something altogether different, a smarter nav that's more elegant. So duly noted. I will take that back to our HMI team. Thank you.
With the way that gas prices are now climbing, is that impacting anything of future plans?
Not really. People are definitely more cautious than they used to be about buying cars, but I don't think they react
In a knee-jerk way. If gas were to go up 50 cents, they realize it's a seesaw. And the cars, again, are more efficient than they used to be. The guys buying muscle cars would probably buy them no matter what it was. You know? And we found that people buying large SUVs, we actually did market research on that. If gas was $6 a gallon, would you still buy an Escalade? They said, yeah, that's what I want to drive, and that's what I need. The people in the middle definitely are more sensitive, especially at the entry level. So we're watching, but we can't react to that. It's impossible to redo a portfolio based on gas prices that changes monthly. Now, trend-wise, we've kind of have a bunch of hybrids coming. We have a bunch of plug-in hybrids. We have what we call BSG technology, which is a mild hybrid. That's going to be in almost all of our portfolio available as an option. So if people are nervous about that, we're going to have multiple options. And that's what that new engine was that I talked to you about on Cherokee. It's way more efficient. Now, to get efficiency, I hate to say it, costs money. So a lot of people say, if I want a more efficient engine, it's going to be $1,500 more. And they do the math in their heads, well,
I'll just save the $1,500 and pay for more gas. It would take you 10 years to pay for $2,000 of more gas typically on a car. So it's actually, people are starting to do the math in their heads and realize, I'll just get the car I want, not so worried. Now, if we got the $7 a gallon like Europe, totally different situation. But it's not going to move more than $1, I don't think.
New Pacific owner.
Yes, sir.
Black dashboards and shiny instrument panels. I'm married to the queen. I'm married to the queen of clean. She walks in her car and she says, the dashboards, you can't order anything but a black dash or a gray dash unless you order a premium interior.
She likes the lighter color.
And yeah, because it doesn't show the dust. And,
Yeah.
and the fingerprints from the grandkids after a day in the car with the shiny black finish
Well,
on
it's
the
not so,
IP.
you're talking about the screen or the top?
Both the screen and the bezel
Okay.
around it are.
Yeah, one of the reasons we do the darker colors because the windshield is so big on the Pacifica. We've tried lighter colors and it reflects in the windshield on a sunny day, which we don't get much here in Michigan. It actually blinds you if we do it too light. So the lightest we have is the mocha color, which is on the premiums, to your point. But interesting, I've never seen that before. And sometimes people over clean and they use like Armor All, which actually makes it worse. We would prefer a greaseless cleaner that makes it matte because it's engineered to be matte, so it doesn't do what you're describing. So make sure she tries the one that doesn't make it shiny, you know. So. And
I do have a little complaint in regards to my dash. I have a dash with pretty white stitching, which reflects.
Is that a Jeep or a Durango? Which one is it?
It's a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
If you could just take a magic marker.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and our engineers have complained about. He's talking about the stitching is so light.
So we were so happy to get stitching. We probably overdid it, you know. But we actually already made the change. We went to a gray stitch because some of our fast feedback custodians said the same thing. So we've already fixed it on the future one. So I'm sorry. It's our over exuberance to put in stitching.
Ralph, to your right.
I only have time for maybe 5 more questions.
Jeep.
I love your shirt. I actually drew that, by the way.
I know, that's why I wore it. That's why I wore it.
Remind me to give you a hug later. Your question is mean or something.
No. Jeep Grand Cherokee. My wife has a 15 and my son just got a 18, I think. And interior colors. Someone quoted you once, and I don't know if this is a fact, that you would never have a gray interior again. Is that true?
I'm actually wearing mouse fur gray today. So.
Okay, well, I love gray interiors. Like
Okay.
I'm driving my wife's old 08 Grand Cherokee today with a two-tone gray interior that I love. She would have loved to have that combination in her 15 and couldn't get it.
Yeah.
I thought I saw a gray interior on a new 18, but it was actually a very light beige and it was dark.
Yeah.
Do you not make
We
gray
are,
interiors anymore?
Well, in the new Grand Cherokee, ironically, we're looking at something called agate gray. So it's kind of like my shirt, actually. So we are trying to bring it back because it's not the first time. It actually is great for creating a light interior that doesn't stain as easily. So we are aware. So we're working on that.
One more on exterior colors. Both my son and my wife would like to have a brighter color on a Grand Cherokee without having to order a upline package. I mean, my son has a Trailhawk,
Yep.
and my wife has an Overland. So brighter colors.
Okay. And here's what, I have a little thing on that because I hear that a lot, right? And we go out of we develop probably the coolest palette out there. And then we only use like the most popular colors are black, silver, white, and gray. And Jerry, you can confirm that no matter what we do. And the poor dealers have to order the cars and stock them. So they don't want to take a chance with a bright green, whatever, unless it's a Challenger or something like that. So that's something I would dare you people that want that kind of thing, order your cars. No one orders cars anymore. Every single car we make can be ordered and you wait for it. It takes about, we actually take the orders and pull them ahead of the dealer, no offense, of the dealer production. Sold orders are pulled ahead. So that still happens to this day. Every single nameplate can be custom made. So we do, if you look in the configurator, we do hide some of those cool colors on there, but people just don't take the time to order the car. They would just buy it off the lot. So I think that should make a comeback, the custom car. It's like a cool process, and we send you an email, your car's going through the line, send you pictures. The Challenger people do it, but it's available for all of our cars.
Yeah, I had a Pacifica last year, and it was Tusk was the color. I got all kinds of positive comments about it. So this year I went to order an 8.
It was canceled. That has happened. I've gotten that complaint. It was a very low runner, less than 2%. So you're one of the 2%. And that's what happens. If a color doesn't sell, unfortunately, I mean, we needed to sell over 6%, 5% for us to keep it. And we just tried a different color. But you're not the only one. I've gotten that note back from a few people. It was kind of a neat pastel-y color. And unfortunately, there's not enough tasteful people like yourself out there.
Yes, was the two-door standard cab discontinued for 2019?
For what, sir?
The standard cab ramp.
No. So here's the deal. We're going to make the two-door for a while only in the old body style because, again, it's a very low runner, and we make a lot more money on the cruise and quads. So it'll come in eventually. But right now, we're making the old configuration. And we're actually throwing in a lot of feature. We're taking some of the premium feature and putting it down into the entry on the older truck to keep it relevant. So.
Rob, how about make this the last question? Yeah.
Better be good.
You mentioned that people are not buying sedans. They don't want to fall into a sedan. They want to climb in.
Slide in. Yeah. Not climb in. Slide. Minivan is the best slider. Yeah.
She wanted a Renegade. She couldn't get into a Renegade.
It was too high?
I tried too high. The sill, especially.
Yeah.
We tried a Patriot. She couldn't. I brought home a Compass loaner. She couldn't get into it. She liked the looks of it so much. We did get a Compass, and she does have a problem getting in.
The Compass is not really that tall. Oh. Is it the Trailhawk you got or the regular? Okay. How tall is your wife? Just out of curiosity.
Well, she was 5'2".
She's still with us. I mean, she's shrunk a little bit. No, it's not. My wife is 5'1". Yeah. Yeah, my wife rips me a new one every time. Yeah.
So story about short people in car. I get you. I'll have to look into that. We're trying to do steps standard more and more for that reason, but it's a tough. My wife's 5 foot tall, and I ordered a Ram 1500 without a side step. Oh my God. That poor lady, I had to get her milk crate every time. So yeah, that didn't go over very well. So I don't like the look of the Mopar steps, but now all my cars have to have them. I hear you. I don't know what to say about that. Yeah. Yeah, that's his point is the doors on the Ford does a great job. They actually integrate the sill in the door, so when you open, you don't have to reach out as far. We're actually looking at that very thing on the next car that he was asking me about. So, gotcha. We hear you there. It's called step out. It's a big problem with some of the newer cars, but okay, that was a lot of questions. I'm starting to sweat, you know.
you can hear me. The one thing we didn't tell Ralph on this high-tech clicker, that there's a, somewhere here, you can just do this and it's not working, you can be turned off anyway. It's got a, no, it's just you can do this and see. Oh, there you can just see how it goes like that. You can just do it and you can do it over here. So we wanted to tell you, we wanted to do something for you because he's been here a lot of times, and I don't know about you, but first of all, he's a spectacular speaker. Yeah. And second of all, for us who have been there, I don't know how many, I was 35 and a half years. I don't know. I'm sure there were 50 years people here that were at this company. And there were times that we couldn't be as proud of that last video. But I think today we can be. And a lot of it's because of Ralph. So for us, we wanted to give Ralph his own high tech with his name on it. And so he won't forget. It says Ralph Shields, and it's a precursor to him being a member of the NCRO. So Ralph, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Wow. Dale, thank you. Everybody who's involved. I still feel like it looks like an electronic toothbrush. I don't know. It's like it's missing the other end of it. But thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. And I honestly get a lot of energy from this group, the enthusiasm. And I could see on your faces, I've watched over the years, what looked like fear a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And I'm seeing a lot more optimism. And I hope all of you are doing well in your lives and your families and all of the lives that our company has touched. I realize that it puts food on the table, but it has a crazy ripple effect to a lot of America. Really comes from what we do. So thank you for your contributions when you were in the game, and we're going to try our best to keep making you proud. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please be careful driving home, and we will see you in October, I think, or at the seminar in September. So thank you very much. Have a great week. Bye-bye.